When it comes to off-season competitions, none are as amazing and as powerful in performance as IRI. It's not one that you can just walk into and try and do well. It's one that in many cases you need to apply for, and it's one of the most impressive shows of robot performance all year, including the regular season. The way it was explained to me when I first started FRC was as a world without divisions. What if those two amazing teams from the same region who were split up because they didn't want them in the same division were able to team up? What if that alliance from the playoffs who wasn't able to win their division teamed up again and was able to come together and win? And of course, what if the world champion and the world finalist teamed up together? Would they be able to dominate in the same way? And would they be able to win together in the same way that they were faced against each other in the playoffs? And of course, there's also a lot of other amazing things that go on. They pack bags, give out scholarships, and of course the mentor matches as well, so it's a fun all around for a competition. However, today I'll be looking at the competitive aspects of it, especially how one team has been able to dominate IRI in a way that no other FRC team has. Today we're going to go into it. Now to start out, much like we honor our mentors and coaches and volunteers at every competition, where we ask them to stand to see how long they've participated, today we will also ask every FRC team that has ever existed, how many times have you won IRI? And now we're going to look at the first slide of, if I were to ask every FRC team that has ever existed, how many times have you ever, if stand up or raise your arm if you've won a single IRI, here's what the results would look like. It's a nice 46 spread. Of course, you start out with the lowest number being the Juggernauts, and of course the highest number being 4587. With this, we can see that there's quite a few teams that have won over the years. With it starting in 2000, we can obviously see that there's a whole bunch of teams who've won it once in all those years. These are captains, these are first picks, second picks, and backup bots. And this, what I'm looking at right now, is irregardless of how they got here. Whether they were a world champion of the year, world finalist, whether they even made Einstein. This is rather any team who has made it to IRI and been on the winning alliance. So kudos to all of them. However, what we're going to do now is we're going to ask the next question. Of all of these FRC teams, how many have gone back and won it a second time? It's going to go down quite a bit, to almost a quarter of it was initially. Now if we look at these teams, we have the Killer Bees. We have Trucktown Thunder. We have Hammond, of course. We have Wildstang. We have the Cyber Knights. We have the First in Michigan Monsters, 308. We have Beachbots, Hawaiian Kids, Lost Gorillas, Symbotics, Winnovation, and OP Robotics. We have a nice mix in here. We have some older teams who've been around since 1996, like Trucktown Thunder, 1997, like the Bees. And of course, we have teams that have been around all the way since 2007, like OP Robotics, with them having quite a few less years to accomplish the same feat. Now let's move on to our next one. Of all of you teams, keep your hand raised or continue standing up if you've come back and won it at least 3 times. Now I've also included the years that they've won these, because that's also important to how long they've been around. We of course have Winnovation, 1625, Lost Gorillas, 469, Cyber Knights, 195, the Killer Bees, 33, Symbotics, 1114, Trucktown Thunder, 68, and OP Robotics, 2056. Now, when we start out looking at the years that they've won, we can already see a correlation. Some of these teams have won the same year, and that's outstanding. Now, if you're looking at this and wondering, wait a minute, Lost Gorillas won more than just the other 3 years, what I've done is I've included their first 3 wins to sort of see a level playing field of when did they win their first competition. And of course, of those that have been around the longest, has anyone who's won the first few years won more than those? And was it the same round of dominance that it was as it is now? Because IRI is a different competition if you go back enough years. So let's look at it. You have a few commonalities. Of course, with teams teaming up. You have Winnovation, who won in 2006, 2009, and 2014. Lost Gorillas, who won 3 of the 4 original years in 2001, 2, and 3, back to back to back, which not many teams have been able to do, especially as the game changes and as robots change. Cyber Knights won the last 3 years, and I do believe that when we have IRI back again, they will continue that streak. with them being a team who routinely makes or comes very close to making Einstein. Then you have the Killer Bees, who won in 2005, 11, and 16, all very separated, and really goes to show how if a team wins in the early years, they can still come back and win it later. As they won that 2016 with some other teams on this list as well. Then you have Symbiotics. Of course, one half of the dynamic duo. They've won it several different years, and of course with that third and the first one being alongside OP Robotics. Trucktown Thunder, 2002, and then back-to-back 8 and 9. And then, of course, OP Robotics winning in 7, 11, and 13 being their first 3 years. One thing to note, though, is that they were up against Symbiotics in 2012, and that's what makes this fun, is that there's a lot of these teams here whom they've won 3, but they've been in the finals of more than 3, fighting against each other in order to work together to try and win. Now, of you teams who've won more than 3, I implore you, keep your hand raised or continue standing up if you've won more than 3, if you've won 4. Now I'll be moving on one at a time because we only have 3 teams who've ever done this. This is incredibly impressive. How many teams have won the World Championship 4 times? Only 2. You've got Hammond and the Cheesy Poofs. And there's 3 that have won IRI. I'm not saying it's as hard to win. Not saying it's not trying to conflate IRI and Einstein. Of course, they're very different power levels. However, it's incredibly impressive to win the same competition 4 years, as anyone can tell you, with different robots in different games. Let's move on to the next one. First one being Symbiotics. Next one being Lost Gorillas. And the third one being OP Robotics, the youngest of the first few lists. Now I'm going to bring in their first 4 championships within champions appearances at IRI. Symbiotics. They won in 2007, 12, 13, and 19. Let's look at OP Robotics. They won in 2007, 11, 13, and 14. Then Lost Gorillas, 1, 2, 3, and 9. As you can tell with 2 of these teams, was the last time they won in those 2 years? Probably not. We'll be able to see. If you look at Symbiotics, one thing to note, they won together with OP in 2007. They were against each other in 2012. They won together in 2013. And of course, 2 teams on the right, the middle, and the right teamed up together to beat Symbiotics and the Cheesy Poofs in 2014. Guess that's kind of a spoiler alert. Let's move on to our next one. We're going to skip over 5 because 2 of these teams have won 5 times and have won 6 times. Let's move on to it. Who are our 2 teams? You have Lost Gorillas. Who else? OP Robotics. Now let's show off what they've been able to do and what years they won. Lost Gorillas, their first 6 wins have been 2001, 2, 3, 9, 10, and 14. Now those are very spread out. When you think about it, OP Robotics hasn't been around since, it's only been around since 2007. And Lost Gorillas has won in 2001 and 2014 being their furthest apart. Now let's look at OP's 6 wins. 7, 11, 13, 14, 15, and 16. Now that's incredibly impressive that they won 13, 14, 15, and 16, but it's even more impressive when you remember that they were in the finals against, of course, Symbiotics in 2012, and had they won, that would have been even more, a 6 in a row. And anyone will tell you it's hard to win 4 of any competition in a row, but if there's one team who could do it, it'd be OP Robotics. So winning 6 of these is incredibly impressive for both of these teams. And as we know, Lost Gorillas teamed up with OP Robotics to win that 2014 title. However, they weren't as nested in their history as, say, OP and Symbiotics. Now let's go on to our last one. Did this winner win 7 titles? Nope. They won 8. So before we reveal who it is, let's look at the championships they won. They won 2007. They won Logo Motion. They won Ultimate Ascent. They won Aerial Assist. They won Stronghold. They won Power Up. And they even won Deep Space. The only thing on here is they were in the finals in 2012. However, they were knocked out in the semifinals in 2017 by, you guessed it, the Cyber Knights, who are another team who I'd love to cover in terms of IRI, as they've done well their last 3 years. So who could this be? If you guessed any team other than that team from Canada, OP Robotics, you'd be incorrect. And this really goes to show something as well, as OP Robotics does hold some other outstanding records as well. If you look at their regular season, they are one of the only teams to have a regional streak as well as they have. From their first ever regional all the way until Waterloo in 2016, they won every single one, which amounts to over 20. I don't believe any other team has been able to do that. As think about it as look at your team. Have you won every single non non world championship competition you've been to over, let's say, 9 years? It's That's an incredible achievement, especially as the game changes, as your robot change, as you have turnover, as you have new coaches and mentors. That's outstanding. And if there's one team to do this feat, it's OP Robotics. They have an outstanding regular season. They have an outstanding off season. And if you look at how well they've done, especially with being on Einstein a few times as well, they're an outstanding team. And I do believe, I've changed my mind a bit, that they're the best FRC teams who have not won Worlds. Them and the Bees are who I like to think of consistently as those two being close to each other. This is an outstanding team, and I wanted to make this as when I was looking back at it, I thought, well, I do know OP is good at IRI, but I believe that's a bit of an understatement. And this really goes to show that. What I will be doing is I'll make another video soon about OP Robotics in terms of how they've done in the regular season, especially the postseason, that being the World Championship. Because I do believe that OP deserves a lot of credit for what they've done with their robot competitively, especially since, compared to some of the other teams they're up against, they are kind of the new guys who've been around since 2007, especially winning IRI their inaugural year. That's not something that every team's been able to do, really, ever. Especially when we look at some of the teams they've been up against for these. Las Gorillas was established long before 2007. If you look at the Four Winds, as well as Symbiotics, they were established a few years before 2007 as well. And neither Las Gorillas nor Symbiotics had the same regional record. So I wanted to make this as a sort of tribute to OP Robotics in this competition. As IRI, anyone will tell you it's not an easy competition to win, and especially not that many years in a row, and making the finals consistently with that. So I wanted to make this for OP Robotics. I'll make another one on them pretty soon. So thank you all.